No naval force in the world, even a rising giant like China, can match the sheer size, firepower, and global reach of the United States Navy. Alone, the U.S. Navy possesses more naval hardware than most of the world combined. Where China and others rely on a handful of aircraft carriers, the U.S. dominates with 11 nuclear-powered supercarriers, including the state-of-the-art Ford-class carriers, technological marvels capable of projecting power to any corner of the globe in record time. But the real question is, can the U.S. maintain this dominance forever? Is China's rapidly expanding fleet of warships and aircraft carriers a legitimate threat to American supremacy on the high seas? And is the U.S. shipbuilding industry and carrier strike capability slowly declining? Let's dive deep into what's really happening beneath the surface. Despite owning the world's largest and most advanced fleet of aircraft carriers, the U.S. Navy is struggling with major internal issues. The biggest one? Availability. Out of the 11 active supercarriers, most are either undergoing repairs or preparing for the next deployment. At any given moment, only 2 or 3 carriers are actually at sea, leading to what analysts call a carrier shortage. Take this example. When the advanced USS Dwight D. Eisenhower was deployed to the Red Sea in 2023 for operations against Houthi forces, it made headlines for breaking several operational records. But the reason for its extended deployment was troubling. It was simply because no other carrier was available to replace it. The Navy had to overwork the Eisenhower and eventually redirected a carrier from the Pacific Fleet, leaving the Indo-Pacific region exposed. Similarly, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's most advanced carrier, was forced to stay deployed in the Middle East far longer than planned due to global tensions. Its deployment was extended 3 times. As a result, when it finally returned, it spent months longer than expected in dry dock for maintenance, delaying its return to action until at least 2025. The biggest problem is maintenance delays. A carrier's full upgrade and overhaul after deployment can take months or even years. And it's not just about time, it's also about manpower. There's already a shortage of skilled technicians, mechanics, and engineers. And hiring new talent? That's not happening fast enough. Supply chain issues, especially after COVID, have made things worse. Critical parts are delayed, shipyard capacity is shrinking, and delays keep stacking up. Since the 1950s, over 80% of U.S. shipyards have shut down. With fewer shipyards and fewer trained workers, ships like the USS George Washington and USS John C. Stennis have seen their refits take 2 years longer than scheduled. Nuclear-powered carriers also need a full refueling and complex overhaul every 25 years, a process so extensive that it's basically rebuilding the entire ship. One small problem during this overhaul can delay the whole fleet. So while the U.S. Navy might look dominant on paper, the reality is that availability, not quantity, is the real challenge. Now, let's turn our eyes east, to China. Near Shanghai lies the Jiangnan Shipyard, a mega facility so massive that it alone could outpace the entire U.S. Navy's shipbuilding capacity. China now holds 350 times more shipbuilding capacity than the U.S. It's almost hard to believe. Here's how we got here. After the Cold War, the U.S. assumed global naval dominance was secure. Believing large fleets were no longer needed, Washington slashed Navy budgets and shipbuilding investment. According to defense economists, had the U.S. maintained its 1989 naval budget trajectory, it would have invested $1.3 trillion more into the Navy by now. Instead, China surged ahead. In 1980, China produced just 220,000 tons of commercial shipping. By 2023, it jumped to over 44 million tons, a staggering 190 times increase. China's share of the global shipbuilding market has risen from just 5% in 1999 to over 50% today. In fact, China now dominates 95% of global container ship production. In contrast, the U.S. has plummeted from a 5% global market share in the 1970s to virtually zero today. Most of America's shipyards are gone. Meanwhile, allies like South Korea and Japan still hold about 31% of the global market, but even they can't compete with China's scale and momentum. To cope with its declining shipbuilding industry, the U.S. has begun partnering with allies. South Korea is now helping maintain U.S. Navy ships. And in April 2025, a major development took place. Hyundai Heavy Industries, one of the world's largest shipbuilders, signed an MOU with HII, America's top military shipbuilder, to boost U.S. shipbuilding capacity. And the U.S. really needs it. Today, the U.S. ranks 19th globally in commercial shipbuilding, with the ability to produce just 5 ships a year. China? It builds over 1,700 ships annually. In 1975, the U.S. was the world leader, producing 70 ships a year. That decline is not just economic, it's a national security concern. In 2024, Chinese shipping giants spent over $123 billion on new ships. Companies like China Merchants Shipping and Costco now rank first and second globally. Meanwhile, China operates over 5,500 vessels under its flag. The U.S. just 80th. Even U.S. allies like Japan and Korea face challenges. Their shipyards often run at a loss and survive only through subsidies. Hyundai and Mitsubishi cover shipbuilding losses with profits from other divisions. Globally, the number of operational shipyards has dropped from 700 in 2007 to just around 300 in 2022. Still, China, Korea, and Japan control 75% of global shipbuilding, with China firmly in the lead, thanks to massive state support and ownership of most major shipyards. Now, you might wonder, why are we linking commercial shipbuilding to naval warfare? Here's the catch. China passed a law in 2016 called the National Defense Transportation Law, which allows the Chinese Navy to commandeer commercial ships during wartime or national emergencies. That's not just sea transport, it includes air and land vehicles too. And they've started putting this into practice. Chinese commercial vessels are now being designed to carry tanks and military equipment, and even used in live war exercises. This policy is called civil-military fusion, and it's a game-changer. Even more alarming? China has reportedly developed a missile launch system disguised as a standard shipping container. It can be loaded onto any commercial vessel and deployed globally. Long-range cruise missiles can be launched from seemingly harmless cargo ships. This could become a major threat to U.S. dominance in naval warfare. Now, the U.S. isn't sitting idle either. It has developed and successfully tested similar containerized missile systems, but the scale at which China is integrating commercial infrastructure into military use is simply unmatched. America's once mighty shipbuilding industry is now a shadow of what it used to be. But some in Washington are waking up. On March 4, 2025, President Donald Trump declared that restoring American shipbuilding is not just about economics, it's about national security. In his speech, Trump announced the creation of a new Office of Shipbuilding at the White House and introduced special tax incentives for American shipyards.
We will create a new Office of Shipbuilding in the White House and offer special tax incentives to bring this industry home to America where it belongs. We used to make so many ships. We don't make them anymore very much, but we're going to make them very fast, very soon.
A bold move aimed at shaking China's grip on global shipping. The U.S. government argues that China's dominance in shipbuilding isn't just unfair, it's actively hurting American trade and costing American jobs. The Navy has set an ambitious goal to build and maintain a fleet of 381 warships. But turning that dream into reality will require $34 to $36 billion every year for the next 30 years. And not just money, it needs massive shipyards and a highly skilled workforce to actually build those ships. That's a tall order. Even in the 2025 defense budget, while the Navy requested $32.4 billion for shipbuilding, it only asked for 6 new ships, well below the 10 to 11 ships per year that are needed to meet future goals. This sluggish pace creates a domino effect. Private shipyards don't see a reason to invest, workers don't see stable job opportunities, and the government ends up spending even more just to keep facilities and workers afloat, even when no ships are being built. Right now, when it comes to naval warfare, America still has the upper hand. It operates far more aircraft carriers than China, and it enjoys broader access to ports and air bases around the world. That gives the U.S. unmatched global reach. But this edge may not last forever. By 2040, the total number of American carriers is expected to remain roughly the same, around 12. New carriers may enter service, but some older ones will also be retired. No significant expansion is planned. Meanwhile, China is racing ahead, aggressively building new carriers. One of its upcoming carriers is said to feature nuclear propulsion and an electromagnetic launch system, a combination only the US currently possesses. When it comes to submarines, the US still maintains superiority, especially in nuclear-powered sub-technology. American experts believe the US still leads in stealth, endurance, and weaponry. But China is closing the gap, fast. In just 2023 and 2024, China launched 6 nuclear-powered submarines. In comparison, the US plans to build just 2 per year and only starting in 2028. If this trend continues, China may soon challenge the US undersea advantage as well. Still, there's one thing China lacks: experience. The United States has been building, deploying, and operating advanced submarines and carriers for over 80 years. China, by contrast, is a rising power still gaining its footing. So here's the big question. Can China, by leveraging its shipbuilding superpower, overtake the United States in modern carrier and submarine warfare? Maybe, but not yet. It will take time. But what do you think? Will China's massive shipbuilding industry give it the edge to dominate the seas? Let us know in the comments.